guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to talk about Spider's Den. Spider's Den is the most important dungeon in the game, and a lot of people find it one of the most challenging dungeons inside the game, especially when you're starting out. So today I'm going to list my top 20 champions for Spider's Den. However, to be fair, there are probably 50 or so really solid champions. So what I'm going to do is, as I go through these champions, I'm going to talk about not just, why I like these champions, but why they are so good for Spider's Den, kind of identifying their skills so that way you can guys can find a replacement for one of these champions if you don't happen to have that specific champion. Just get you guys thinking more about the composition of your overall Spider team rather than just each of these specific individual champions that we talk about. So Spider's Den, the best place to farm accessories, the only place to really farm accessories besides the bazaar in the game. Also the best place by far and away to farm silver inside this game. So it's very important to have a cohesive team and strategy built up for the Spider's Den. So let's go ahead and just start. I picked out 20 champions. I specifically did not just load the list up with like 20 legendary champions. I did pick 8 legendaries to talk about today, but a few of them are free to play accessible. So let's go ahead and just start out with, you guys know at this point, if you've been watching the channel for a while, one of my favorite champions, maybe my favorite champion in the game, and it's Sylar of the Drakes. I love Sylar of the Drakes, and I think she's amazing for Spider because she has a really great component. It's an AoE 2-time hitter, each with a 35% chance when booked of landing a stun on the enemies. Stunning or any sort of crowd control on the Spiderlings is going to be imperative to success inside Spider's Den. There are more than one ways to skin the proverbial cat, so you don't have to have a stun champion on your team, but having 2 or more AoE stunners on the team, even 1 AoE stunner on the team, is going to be very helpful. So each of these 2 AoE attacks from Sylar of the Drakes has a 35% chance of landing that stun, so you get a double chance on the 35. Put her in stun gear on top of that, and you're going to be consistently landing a bunch of stuns against those Spiderlings, thereby keeping your damage dealers and the rest of your team alive, because those are the only attackers in Spider's Den, those Spiderlings, of course. So she also has heals on her passive, which is great. She has increased speed on her passive, and she has the revival and the ally protection, so she's great support and also crowd control champion. Next is going to be Contra the Cyclone. Now, Contra the Cyclone is another fantastic champion. She is anti-affinity for Spider's 20. Spider's 20, of course, being Spirit, her being Force Affinity. Either way, she's a great Spider tank, even for Spider's 20. I've seen people use her as their Spider tank, even at level 50 on stage 20 Spiders. And we're going to talk about another champion kind of along these lines, a Force Affinity champion for Spider. Why is she so great? Well, first off, on her passive, check this out. Decreases each enemy's accuracy by 10 for each debuff they are under. That's going to be pivotal when it comes to those Spiderlings, right? And then this champion will receive 4% less damage for each debuff on the attacker, helpful as well. Heals this champion by 1,250 HP each time a debuff expires on an enemy. Think about that. Think about how many Spiderlings there are and how many heals are going to be going off. Also has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn on enemies under 5 or more debuffs at the start of this champion's turn, and this champion can place debuffs on weak hits, which is also helpful because she lands 6 debuffs, right? One of the following debuffs. Attacks all enemies 3 times. On each hit, she has a 50 or 75% chance, when booked, of landing one of the following debuffs. Now, we can go through all these debuffs, but essentially, she's going to be stacking up all of these debuffs, attacking 3 times on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, so you guys can see the synergy between this ability, Chaos Tempest, and her passive, No Escape. She makes for a great Spider tank. She's constantly going to be healing herself up, and she's going to be landing these provokes as the battle goes on longer and longer. She can still place all her debuffs, even if it's anti-affinity on Spider's 20, because of this weak hits kind of exception on her passive. So Contra the Cyclone, a very tremendous champion, a new release, a previous fusion champion that is great, of course, on Spider. Next up, we're going to talk about another kind of class of characters altogether that are going to be very helpful for Spider's Den. And that is going to be not Sacred Order, but Bannerlords. Where are you? Right in front of my face. Let's talk about the big fella himself. You can see I do not have him, unfortunately, but it's Septimus. Septimus can almost one-shot the spider. That's how good he is, right? So this Holy Sword, and again, the class of champion that we're talking about here on Septimus is these champions that do damage based on enemy max HP. Gonna talk about quite a few of them in today's video. Not all of them though. Another one is Husk, who we're not gonna talk about on this video, but I did a full guide on him if you want to check him out. Anyway, attacks one enemy, ignoring shields, ignoring block damage buffs. Damage increases according to enemy max HP. The spider has a ton of HP, which is great. And of course, it's based on attack and enemy max HP. On his passive though, each attack has a 30% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs on the target for 1 turn, and damage inflicted by each attack increases by 30% if the current enemy's HP is over 50%. So this giant killer, mixed with his A2, he can deal an insane, talking 5 million plus damage. I don't own Septimus, but boy, if I did, he would be on my Spider's team as my main damage dealer. Just incredible stuff from Septimus. Next up is going to be actually the new champion, who is a daily login reward, guys. So we'll all be getting her for free, Visix the Unbowed, right? So Visix the Unbowed, she's the final daily login reward in the game right now. And on her A3, she places a provoke debuff on the target for 1 turn. Also place an ally protect on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. So a 3-turn ally protect. On the A2 though, it's an AoE attack on a 3-turn cooldown. Has a 100% chance when booked of landing the strong version of decreased speed, and then place a shield buff on this champion equal to 20% of their max HP for 2 turns. So we look at the A2, we see the decreased speed, that's good. And on the A1, we see some turn meter. Turn meter is another factor that's very, very important for all of your spider teams. Really important to have turn meter boosters on your team and champions who can decrease the turn meter of your enemies on your team as well. And Visix has this on her A1, right? So attacks one enemy 2 times, all the damage based on defense here. Each hit has a 100% chance of decreasing target's turn meter by 10%. So that's really great, and it fills this champion's turn meter equal to the amount the target loses. So 20% turn meter exchange, if you will, on the A1 from Visix the Unbowed. So again, turn meter, very important, dealing damage off of defense with the self-shield, with the AoE decreased speed, and with the provoke as well on there. Granted, it's not an AoE provoke, that would be amazing, but still, it's going to be a very good champion for spider teams when people start to unlock her for free, essentially. However, you really do need books eventually on this A2, so that's the gift and the curse, of course, of getting a champion like this on as a free champion. She's not really free, right? The next champion is one of my favorites in the game. It is Trunda Guilt Mallet. So Trunda is amazing. On her A2, she has this the biggest multipliers in the game. I think it's a 6 multiplier, I believe, on an AoE attack, excuse me. The caveat is that it only does 60% of the initial damage after the first hit, so it's really not that great of a multiplier, but it's still, Cloak of Ages hits very hard, but really, it's all about the Forge rhythm, right? So attacks all enemies. She has a 70% chance of landing a stun and an HP burn. Now, 2 more factors that we're going to talk about right out the gate here is stun and HP burn. Both of those are incredible, especially when combined. So if you have a stunner on your team and an HP burner on your team, you're going to keep the enemies stunned, keep them from going, but also keeping the spiderlings alive vis-a-vis the stun. That way, all of those ticks of HP burn do even more damage onto the mother spider herself. So again, the combination of stun and HP burn are really, really tremendously strong against the spider, and Trunda has both of them on the Forge Rhythm ability, okay? Excuse me, granted it is a 5-turn cooldown, but still a tremendous ability, a tremendous champion against Spider. She can be your main damage dealer, even out damaging sometimes a Royal Guard or a Cold Heart, so those big damage based on enemy max HP champions, okay? Next up is going to be an Undead Horde champion. We don't talk about enough here on the channel. It's Nethril. Nethral's tremendous. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my little cough over here. Sorry, guys. Nethral's great, man. His Bat Swarm ability on a 4-turn cooldown decreases all enemies' turn meter by 75%. And again, I mentioned it a few times, going to mention it probably a few times more in this video. Turn meter manipulation, especially at 75%, is tremendous. Now, Razin has 100% turn meter on an AoE as well, so Razin's a tremendous option as well. Granted, it is an anti-affinity matchup for stage 20, so we're going Nethril, but the other reason we're going Nethril is he has a stun on his A2. Excuse me. A stun on his A2. So on a 4-turn cooldown, he has a 75% chance of placing a stun on all enemies, and he has a decreased speed for 2 turns on targets not under that stun. So the decreased speed, very good debuff against spiders, and the stun, tremendous. Overall champion for Spider's Den in Nethril. Now I want to talk about another champion that we don't talk about a ton necessarily here on the channel, and it is, I believe he is a Dark Elf, and it's Ghostborn. Ghostborn's great against Spider. I use him on my main team, or at least I used to. He has a decreased defense on an AoE on a 4-turn cooldown on his A3, excuse me. He also has an increased attack on all allies. Now, the decreased defense cannot be resisted either, so he's one of those rare champions that has that great debuff, but you don't have to build his accuracy high if you're just looking for that decreased defense on the AoE with a 100% chance when booked. However, he has an AoE with 100% heal reduction, which is also great against the Spider herself on a 3-turn, so you do want to build him with accuracy if you want to take advantage of the Petrify. The idea here behind Ghostborn being so good is he has the 2 AoE attacks, which is great for the Spiderlings. He has the strong version of decreased defense, and the strong version of increased attack on all of your teammates. So having all that on one ability, and it cannot be resisted, is a very, very good skill set to have in a variety of dungeons, especially for Spider's Den. Also has a 50% chance, can be booked all the way up to 100 to land decreased defense on his A1 as well on Energy Bolt, and he can sustain some damage. He has a high base, a decently high base defense. He does say a support champion. He's kind of a jack of all trades here in Ghostborn. Next up and last up on our list here for the legendaries is going to be, did I cheat? You know, I was going to give it to Drexstar Blood Twin. He's a great spider tank, one of the best in the game, but I actually wanted to give a nod to another champion. Like I said, there's a lot of guys and gals that I could mention here in this video, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Ignatius, a champion that we don't, again, talk about a tremendous amount here on the channel, but he's great for Spider's Den, right? So he has the proper affinity matchup for level 20. Turn to Ash, has an HP burn on an AoE on a 5-turn, and then his A2, Battle Shout, another AoE ability that has the provoke there. So again, he can act as a nuker and a tank, and not only landing the provokes, but also landing the HP burn on the A3, which we already talked about is a tremendous ability. Why is he also a tank? Well, A, he has the provoke, so he's going to be your tank, of course, on the AoE, but in a 75% chance is great as well, but his damage is based on defense. So he's an AoE nuker whose damage is based on defense. It's great synergy there in Ignatius. And yeah, so you build him up with a bunch of defense. He's going to build a tank very well, as a stun on the A1 as well. So those are the legendaries I wanted to talk about to start this video off. Hey, we're here in Ogren anyway. Let's go with Maneater as we move into the epic champions that I've selected for this video. So Maneater's great. He has a block debuffs, right? So block debuffs already with the Unkillable is a tremendous ability on a 5-turn cooldown. Ancient Blood is going to be blocking all those poisons from the Spiderlings. But not only that, on his A2, a tremendous ability against the Spider herself. On a 3-turn cooldown, Siphon is one of the better abilities in the game, certainly for epic champions in this game, right? Attacks one enemy, fully depletes the target's turn meter, and then fills this champion's turn meter equal to the amount the target loses. That is amazing. I've mentioned this before, but just a tremendous ability in Siphon. His entire kit is fantastic, right? Check out his A1, Pummel. Has a decreased attack, 50%, strong version, on all enemies if the attack is critical. So an AoE decreased attack, steal the entire turn meter of the Spider, and the Unkillable, and the block debuffs, man. This guy is tremendous for Spider's, I call you out on Spider's Lair and Spider's Den. Spider's Den. Apologies. All right, next up is going to be one of my favorite debuffers in the game. Stag Knight, right? So Stag Knight, another crucial role on your team. We talked about it on Ghostborn. We're talking about it again on Stag Knight. And again, guys, so many legendaries that are amazing in Spider. I could probably sit here all day and just keep listing them off. So if I didn't say Venus or I didn't say Dracomorph or all these other champions, understand that I just didn't want to make this list all legendary champions. I kind of want to talk more about roles again here, okay? So Stag Knight has the decreased defense and the decreased attack on a 3-turn cooldown, 95% chance. Get that sniper mastery on him, make it 100%, and just a tremendous debuffer for your team. Very, very reliable. Deals a decent amount of damage. He's a champion who has a high base speed at 107, a decent defense at 1046. I like to put my Stag Knight sometimes in a shield set. I have my Stag Knight in a shield set, and I build him up with a little bit HP as well because his HP is very high at 21,000 damage nearly, or 21,000 HP total, excuse me, nearly. So build him out with an HP chest instead of a defense chest if you want to. Throw a shield set on this champion, and not only is he being your main debuffer, the decreased attack, decreased defense, but he's also going to help keep all of your champions alive with 3 turns of that great shield, not necessarily for Spider's den, but also for all the dungeons that you use him in, okay? Stag Knight, a tremendous champion, definitely one of my faves. Let's go over to Orcs real quick here and talk about a champion who, well, doesn't get a lot of love. Ultimate Galac. So Ultimate Galac is a solid Spider champion. That's about it, in my opinion at least. I don't use him anywhere else, or I wouldn't recommend using him anywhere else personally other than Spiders, but he's great at Spiders, right? So on a 4-turn cooldown on Burning Rage, he has an AoE 2-time. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing HP burn for 2 turns if this champion is under an increased attack buff. Each hit also has a 75% chance of decreasing the turn meter by 20% if the target is under that HP burn. Burning Rage, a tremendous ability, has the turn meter and the HP burn, providing he has an increased attack on himself. Now, he has an HP burn on his A2 as well. HP burn does spread, so to speak, so it's good to have an additional HP burn ability on a 3-turn cooldown. He also has a decreased target's turn meter if the attack is not critical. So you're going to be building him with a 100% crit rate anyway. That's really not a huge factor there. But again, having him with an additional champion that has the increased attack is going to be helpful, obviously, to get the full potential out of Ultimate Galac. He also has HP burn debuff on his A1, and he has that still that kind of weird turn meter fill by 10% of the attack is critical, 5% of the attack is not critical. So okay, but that's Ultimate Galac, a solid HP burn champion with the AoE on the A3. Again, if you're looking for one, also has that turn meter in there as well. Next on the list is going to be probably the best support champion. Maybe not behind Siffy, another champion that we could have mentioned, but of course it is Miscreated Monster, man. His shield was built for Spiders, right? It's tremendous. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a stun. So we talked about how crucial, how important that's either a stun or turn meter manipulation, turn meter decreasing is on your team. Also has a shield buff on all allies for 3 turns, equal to 25% of the damage inflicted. Damage is based off HP. Another champion whose HP scales very well as well. So build him out with a bunch of HP, dealing a ton of damage, 100% crit rate. You're landing those stuns, and you're getting one of the best shields in the game for Spiders because of think about all those targets. Also has the ally protect and the continuous heal on his A3. Also has a stun and decreased defense on his A1. Miscreated Monster, I mean, just tremendous support. Shield does very well, also does stun, so you put them together, you're looking really good with the ally protect as well. Next up is going to be one of the better damage dealers. I run one of them, but at one point I ran 2 for Spiders, and that is Royal Guard. So the takedown ability, you guys probably are already familiar with it, but it does a ton of damage, right? Not just to all the Spiderlings, but mainly to the Spider herself. You can put this right up there with, you know, Cold Heart's Heartseeker ability and all the other enemy max HP damage dealing abilities. A 4-turn cooldown. I mean, you don't have to book up Royal Guard either, which is a nice thing about this champion. Don't even book him. I mean, extra 20% damage is solid, and that can be 200 or more thousand extra damage. So books are nice on him, but not imperative. He also has I was going to say an AoE, but it's actually a 4-time at random with the decreased speed, though, on the A3. So Royal Guard, just because of how much damage he deals, is tremendous. Again, having a big damage dealer based on enemy max HP going to give you tremendous success in just nuking down that spider, right? You need these big nukers, at least one of them on your team. Royal Guard, Cold Heart, Septimus, a couple others that we'll talk about in just a moment here, okay? Husk before level 20 spider does the trick as well. Next up is going to be, now this is an interesting one here, guys. I put Sylar / Skullcrown / Synesha all in one spot. I'm cheating a little bit here, but essentially having a big nuker. Sylar is great. I like her a little bit more than the others, but it's just personal preference. Skullcrown is great too. She has the unkillable, which is going to help keep her alive. She also has the 2 AoE attacks on the A1 and the A2. So especially these big just kind of nuker champions are going to be tremendous for you guys, especially up until like Spider 16, where you need to have a little bit more of a strategy just than sheer nuking, unless you have, you know, 4 Royal Guards or whatever, Cold Hearts on your team. But having a champion like Skullcrown, you can really lean so heavily on all these champions, Sylar, Synesha, again, and Skullcrown, especially in the mid kind of tier stages, but you can even run them in the late stages as one of your kind of damage dealer nukers. I just kind of like to look for, and here's Synesha, same thing. Synesha has the AoE on the A1 with the extra hit on enemies with less than 50% HP. She also has the kind of the heal here, equalizing all HP on the A3, and of course has the one enemy, puts targets skills on cooldown and heals the ally with the lowest HP by 25% on the A2. So really, really solid options here. Let's just show Sylar as well so we can be thorough. So Sylar here has the A3 with the decreased speed on the AoE. That's why I like her a little bit better. She also has the decreased turn meter by 40% on a 4-turn cooldown. So Leaden Legs with the decreased speed and the turn meter, I think that Sylar is probably my favorite, personally, AoE option. She has an AoE on the A1, AoE on the A2 as well, with the decreased accuracy, which is actually pretty helpful against the spiderlings, preventing them from landing the poisons, providing you have enough of resist on your champions as well. So I like Sylar, but of course Synesha, Skullcrown, both tremendous as well. Now, the last champion we're going to talk about on the epics here is Lua, right next door, right? So Lua and Allure can kind of do the same thing, right? We're talking turn meter manipulation, turn meter reduction. So imperative against Spider, and she has it on the A3, okay? So the A3 is attacks one enemy, decrease the target's turn meter by 100%. Will ignore shield and block damage buffs on a 4-turn cooldown. So nice to have that 100% reduction of the turn meter on the Lucky Shot ability. Now, in addition to that, she has a 50% of the inflicted damage to all enemies if the attack is critical, so a weaker AoE on Splinter Arrow on the A1, and then all enemies 3 times with the heal on the A2. She's going to be healing herself, essentially, back up on all of her hail of arrows, so she has the sustainability, she has the turn meter, she has the AoE. Heck, you can even put her in a stun set because she's hitting 3 times at an 18% chance every time on the A2, and she's hitting all enemies 1 time on the A1. That's why I really love Lua, and again, Allure is another option. She has turn meter on her A1. If you're looking for another, she's great against Fire Knight Allure, but Allure is great for turn meter against, of course, the Spider herself. So let's go ahead and talk quickly about some rare champions here, guys. And let's start with the queen of all rares against Spider. It is Cold Heart. We talked about her Heartseeker ability. It has the decreased target's turn meter by 100%. Again, just like Sylar, only better because it's dealing 1 million+ damage. On top of that, with the extra 30% of inflicting a critical hit, she also has a decreased accuracy in the poison on a 3-turn on her A2, and she has a 4-time hitter with heal reduction on her A1. So again, Cold Heart is just, you can't get better than a champion like Cold Heart for spiders. She's built for really every dungeon in the game, but especially for spiders. A lot of people build out 1, 2, 3, or even 4 Cold Hearts if you're lucky enough to get that many for spiders, because she is that good. Not only in Fire Knight, but in spiders. Cold Heart is top tier. We're talking S tier champion overall. A champion that I haven't talked about in a while, but was one of my favorites for a while in this game, you guys know, is Soulbound Baker. She has the big big damage dealing abilities on her A2 and her A3. Attacks one enemy, additional 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit on all of her skills, by the way. And also has a 75% chance, 100% when booked, of fully depleting the target's turn meter. Again, we talked about it. Turn meter is tremendous. And then she has the ignore defense on the A2. And then she has the AoE on her A1. So she has a little bit of everything that you're looking for. AoE damage on her A1, even better, just like Sinesha. And then she has the ignore defense, dealing some decent damage on the infused arrow to the spider herself. And then the 100%, or excuse me, yeah, fully depleting, the 100% chance of fully depleting the target's turn meter on her A3. I love Soulbound Baker. And then let's talk about maybe the obvious choice here, and that would be, of course, Apothecary. Apothecary. Easy. Apothecary. Apothecary's A3 has an increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns, and then the fill the turn meter here. Gorgorab, another great champion with a revival. He's an epic champion, but also has that kind of increased turn meter, increased speed. It's all about speed, right? Also has the heals on the A2, but it's all about speed for Spider, right? You want to be way faster than the Spider, and you want to be improving your turn meter, having your champions go more before things get out of control, especially as you progress, of course, in Spider's Den. Now we go to Ogren real quick. We only have 2 champions left here, guys. We are running through this this video. No edits either, although I was coughing like a madman halfway through. Bellar is great because he has a bunch of debuffs. Let's just be simple here. A bunch of debuffs. Put him in a stun set, he's even better, right? Put him in a stun artifact set. Decreased speed. We love decreased speed again. It's the weak version of decreased speed, but we'll take it, right? And then he'll be stunning, and he has the decreased attack, decreased defense. So he has a little bit of everything and a bunch of AoEs. A lot of people can just use Bellower as their nuker as well, up until stage like 12 or so of Spider, as like, because he has an AoE on every single attack. Bellower with the debuffs as well, with the stun set as well. You're talking about a really kind of key component to Spider's teams. Maybe not as much in, you know, stages 18, 19, 20, but still you can get by with a Bellower just fine, even up to stage 20. Providing you have the right supporting cast around him because of all those AoEs. And last but not least, guys, I actually want to give a nod to a uncommon champion. An uncommon champion, it's Armiger. So we talked about Armiger before, but he has everything that you really want here, kind of, on the A2, right? Late arrest ability on a 2-turn cooldown. Attacks one enemy, damage inflicted according to defense, and increases according to this champion's max HP, or excuse me, the enemy max HP, and enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. Very simple, but, you know, on the A1, decrease the turn meter by 30% if this attack is critical. So, simple champion, right? But uncommon. Has a ton of damage he's dealing on the A2. We're talking million+ damage off of this, provided you have the right gear, enough crit damage built on him. But at the very least, he's doing a few 100,000 on the A2 on a 2-turn cooldown. And then on the A1, has the decreased turn meter by 30% if the attack is critical again. Everything we're looking for in only 2 abilities. You just alternate but abilities, right? Turn meter on the A1, late arrest. Turn meter on the A1, a lot of damage on the A2. So Armiger's definitely a very viable champion for Spider's Den. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope this provided not just a list of champions for you guys to use in Spider's Den, but also why you want to use them. That was kind of the goal of this video. So thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. I appreciate all you guys, and as always, take care, guys.